Moving on, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Cincinnati Bengals. A game that, again, the average NFL kind of casual fan looks at that and they're just like, well, let's skip that one. I don't want to watch it. I'm looking forward to this one, man. I like the two young quarterbacks here. I think there's a lot to like. I think there's a lot of excitement for both of these teams. Again, you're not challenging for a Super Bowl. Probably neither one of these teams is really even going to challenge for the playoffs, but things are looking up for these franchises. Let me hit you with projections here. Gardner Minshew, I actually have as having a tougher game, although I like him, and I think you should pick him up with waivers and everything. I think he has a tougher game this week against Cincinnati, but I think it's a James Robinson week. I love him. I like Minshew a lot more if DJ Chark can play. I think he was kind of wire-to-wire Thursday night. Maybe he would have played on Sunday but couldn't play on Thursday kind of deal. So check that out. If he plays, I start Chark every week. I don't care about the projection. I think Laviska Shenault has probably his best game of the young season here. I'm staying away from other Jaguars, though. For Cincinnati, I'm a start on Burrow. At this point, especially in Superflex, you got to start this guy every week, man. They love chucking the ball in Cincinnati. I will say this. We came out hard against Cincinnati and their use of Mixon. They didn't get a lot of yards per carry. I know they went away from him a little bit later, but they stuck with him in the first half for like the first time. At least they waited till the third quarter to ditch him. So I was a little bit more enthused by that, but I'm still trying to sell on Mixon, to be honest with you. You know what Zach Taylor wants to do? He wants to throw the ball, and Cincinnati's going 5 wide at this point. So let's talk about some of these receivers. Gio Bernard, by the way, I think has a better week than Mixon this week. Tyler Boyd is a start for me. And you got to look at A.J. Green, T. Higgins, these guys. I think there's maybe a changing of the guard. Higgins got in the end zone twice, although I argue those 2 targets, I thought, analytically speaking, they were going to go to Drew Sample. I had a nice projection daily fantasy sleeper on Drew Sample, and then Higgins gets 2 touchdown grabs within 5 yards. Those are the tight end grabs. Come on. No, but Cincinnati, seriously, dude, like they have just loaded talent at wide receiver. Nobody talks about the wide receiver top to bottom of this team. They're monsters, man. They can pass the ball. You know the scheme rewards passing. I love Joe Burrow. Lots to look forward to for Cincinnati. Exciting football. I just wish Joe Mixon could get going. Take it away, David.
Well, first I'll start with the Jaguars. You mentioned James Robinson. If you're thinking about selling high on this guy, don't.
Yes,
don't. Do not do it. Ride it out. You've got a great potential low-end RB1 on your hands here, just based on the volume this guy is seeing and the market share of the running back touches he's seeing. He faces the Bengals this week, who have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to running back so far. I like Minshew in a bounce back. I think now that they had a little bit of extra time this week, Chark comes back. You're starting him. I agree, Shenault. Even Keelan Cole. I think this Cincinnati Bengals defense has proven to us that they can get carved up a little bit. On the other side, how bad is it that you said, I've got Gio Bernard projected to outscore Joe Mixon this week, and it didn't even ring a bell in my head. It didn't even ring an alarm. You know, it just kind of passed right through, and I was like, okay, like this is not good, guys. And you say you're trying to sell Mixon, you can't. You're stuck with Joe Mixon until he does better, and until he has at least stacks 2 good games. Then maybe you can sell. Until then, you ain't getting anywhere close to what you paid for him. You're not going to get anywhere close to what you could get if you wait out the ride a little bit longer. So just kind of hope that Joe Mixon has a good game. It's the Jaguars, guys. Like, this could be the game where he finally gets things right. But after that, the schedule doesn't look great. I mean, if you can get out on Joe Mixon after this week, do it. For the wide receivers, another guy, if you can get out on A.J. Green, get out on this guy. T. Higgins is taking over, has led the team in snaps 2 weeks in a row. It's clearly the Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins show. A.J. Green, after that Thursday night game we watched where he caught 3 out of 13 targets. This last week, 5 receptions, 36 yards. This is a game in which Burrow threw the ball 44 times, guys. Like, there's just not a whole lot of upside with A.J. Green. I'm almost willing to cut. I don't have him anywhere. I was avoiding him like the plague. But you should be willing to cut this guy. I mean, you should be willing to cut him for T. Higgins this week and swap with Higgins. So if you're willing to cut A.J. Green for T. Higgins, a rookie wideout, you should be able to be willing to cut him for just about anyone, guys. Like, trade him for a backup running back. Trade him for something with upside where there's a potential at some point you could insert the player into your starting lineup and feel comfortable about it and feel like you've got some upside. I don't think at any point you're going to feel comfortable, 1, inserting A.J. Green into your lineup, or 2, leaving him in there. So I think get out on him. If he has a good game this week, trade him for a backup running back. Trade him for friggin' Malcolm Brown if you have to. Like, get some sort of upside on the squad. Get rid of A.J. Green, guys. Just move on. It's time to move on.
Yeah, and back to Cincinnati too, and just following up what I said before. Lots of talent on this team. I like this team. And I'm just a seller on the head coach. I don't like what he does. I don't like teams that go one-dimensional so quickly. And I firmly believe that if Arthur Smith, the Tennessee play caller, was the coach in Cincinnati, if John Gruden, the coach in basically, I believe that the Cincinnati team has the talent on their roster to be a winning team. But I don't think that they have the scheme to be a winning team. But
that line, too, the line is so bad. And I think that's another lesson to be learned, guys. We
Sure.
got to put more stock into terrible offensive lines.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're picking a running back early with a terrible offensive line, he's probably should be a second-round pick and not a first-round pick.
Yeah, and you mentioned, too, James Robinson, speaking of running backs here. I had a couple of questions this week about, people in dynasty leagues. James Robinson, should I trade him for a first or blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, what are you going to do with that first-round pick in a dynasty league? You're going to draft a running back and hope and pray that he's as good as James Robinson. You got to hold him. This scheme is great. The only thing that would give me pause is if maybe they went and they fired Marone and they cleared house and there's a new scheme and maybe the offensive coordinator wants somebody different. But you see it on film, man. He's explosive and he has hands. He's what you want in a running back. Keep him. You have him.
And
You won.
last year, Fournette was a top 8 fantasy running
Yes.
back. It's a good situation. We all think Jaguars bad. If Fournette was a top 8 running back in this system, and people are worried about next year, what if they draft a running back? Do you guys
They're not going to.
Do you see how many holes this team has? Again,
Yeah.
This is assuming rational decision-making, which is probably might be taking it too far with this franchise. But they got a lot of holes to fill. I'm not so sure they're taking a running back in the first 3 rounds next year, and I'm not so sure the chances of that are anywhere below ridiculously low. So I think James Robinson's starter this year. I think he's going into next year as the starter. I think he could be the guy for good. So I'm not selling high on him.
Why would Jacksonville, first of all, you can generally get running backs pretty decently anyway. Why would Jacksonville spend the draft capital? And I get it. I hear people thinking that. Why? Because James Robinson didn't have a name coming into the 2020 draft. You see it on film. He's got all-pro talent. The Jacksonville is not going to be drafting a day 1 or a day 2 running back.
Especially after the Fournette decision burned them so badly.
Yeah.
You think they want to go down that path again?
Yeah.
James Robinson's the guy.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let me hit you with the line here, David. So Bovada has Jacksonville +3 versus Cincinnati. Who do you got?
I'm going to take Jacksonville here. I like Joe Burrow. I like what you're doing, but you talk about the play calling, the offensive line. It's going to look good for Burrow. This is still a terrible team. I'll take Jacksonville in a bounce-back week, getting DJ Chark back in the lineup.
Cincinnati goes one-dimensional too quickly. I had this when I set the line. I thought it was Jacksonville +3 as well, just based on a couple of things. I'll take the points in this one. I think it's a close game. And, I think Jacksonville with that extra rest, Cincinnati playing one-dimensional. I'll take Jacksonville to cover as well.